Hey Christ Freedom, hope y'all are doing well. Welcome to Month of Mission once again. This week our theme is really centered around our stories, specifically the fact that every single one of us has a story of how God has made a difference in our life that he wants to use to point other people to him. And so Robert, share a little bit with us two things. One, why our story is so important as we even talk about mission. Why are stories so important? And then would love to hear just even a little bit of how God has been at work in your story.
Yeah, good. I think why stories are important is I would not arguably say, but very passionately say that all of us have a story. Mm-hmm. And because all of us have a story, that then levels the playing field. Mm-hmm. Where, if we think of mission as I need to attempt to convert someone, which that's not on us anyway, then I think we almost feel like we need to come in with this sense of like power and authority. But if we come in with this sort of humility of I have a story, you have a story, we have a story, how can I use my story to introduce Jesus, but also hear your story to see how I can also introduce Jesus to you? I think stories are important because they level the playing field. Yeah. We come in with something that everyone has. And I mean, honestly, as I think about my own story, my life early on was marked by abandonment in various ways. And because of that, I think some of my, core lies and struggles was value. Am I valued? Love? Am I loved? And with that came this deep sense of depression. And so throughout my life, I would often attempt to attain and or achieve success to define my value, or relationships to define my love. And what I found even in my own life is that it was never enough. And when the gospel was introduced to me and the narrative of God's love became so apparent to me, what I quickly latched onto was the cross defines for me that I am loved. The cross defines for me that I am valued. And actually the cross defines that I'm broken, but it's because of my brokenness that Jesus died on the cross for me. And so I am forgiven. And so like my intrinsic value is defined on the cross. That God wasn't okay with my brokenness because I am broken. And so he sent his son Jesus to die for me. And so the overwhelming love of God is enough to bring me into this place of realizing I don't have to find my worth or my value in other places that are earthly, but I have it in the one who created all things, God, who is loving and kind and true and faithful. And so I just find my deep value and my deep worth on the cross that Jesus died in our place for. And that's good news. I mean, that's like, for me, I have to remind myself of that often, even though I'm, been redeemed out of sort of this, core lie of mine, I still have to remind myself, like, that is not who I am. Like, I don't have to search for value. I don't have to search for love. God defined it for me on the cross of Jesus Christ.
That's good, man.
Yeah.
And one thing that...
Hold up, I gotta praise.
Woo! Well, yeah. First of all, thank you for sharing your story. But one thing that hits me as you're sharing is that while all of our stories are clearly different, there's almost always overlap.
For sure.
And even as we didn't talk beforehand about what little parts of our stories we were going to share, but I see overlap even in how I encountered the gospel and in how you encountered the gospel. Even though there's a difference, there's overlap. And I think that's one reason why stories are so powerful.
For sure.
Is that everyone has a story, and whenever we open up, regardless of what we believe, it's so often that we see ourselves in the story of other people and how we could potentially come to experience some of that same hope. So what is practically, in light of just what you shared, what does that look like practically, kind of living out? How should that affect how we think about or do mission?
Yeah, I think in sharing our stories, it welcomes a degree of openness and transparency. And so I think the how to this is the willingness to be open and transparent with your life for the gospel to be heard, and I think parts of our story welcome a degree of sadness sometimes. It welcomes a degree of, man, like maybe even we're overwhelmed by just the sure reality of what the Lord has done. And sometimes it's hard to show the vulnerability to people that we may not know or trust. But I think that also communicates us carrying our cross in like a sacrificial way, where we almost sacrifice comfort of ourselves so that other people may come to meet Jesus.
Yeah.
And so I think the vulnerability to share with openness and transparency, and I think through that, Reese, man, when you share your story, I think that actually could be the chiseling of the heart that is hardened toward the things of God.
That's good.
Yeah.
It hits me that all of us have a story that God wants to use, but even though it's our story, it's not our story to hoard.
Oh, that'll preach.
You know, that's what I come away with just from what you said. So
that's good.
Well, hopefully this has been helpful, church. And again, we'll continue to be talking about our stories in the next few days. And so tune in. But until then, have a great rest of your day, and we will see you soon.